Kenya Ferry Services say they have oxygen tanks that can only last the divers up to 30 meters deep, yet the vehicle was located some 60 meters deep at the busy Likoni Channel.
We are relying on one person, which we hope will carry the end of the day. That's now a farm called Subsea, which we've contacted. According to police, Mariam and her daughter were traveling back from Sambweni, where they had gone to inspect a family property. On their way home, their vehicle, a Toyota Isis, the last one on the ramp of MV Harambe, plunged into the water. There was, however, no barrier to restrain it.
Dada alitoa mkono, anataka usaidizi, anafanya hivi, lakini kupata usaidizi wote. Gari likaa zaidi kama dakika 20, bado iko juu. Speed boat hakuna, haikukuja ikasaidia, wala hakuna kitu chochote kikakuja ikasaidia.
Gari inateleza inarudi nyuma na kuingia kwenye bahari. Sijawahi kuona ajali kama hii. Kumaanisha kwamba wangeweka zile chains upande wa nyuma pale ambayo inaweza kuzuia gari.
Any form of rescue could be also in another way trying to endanger the persons who are doing the rescue. So it was unlikely that there was a way to do it in a safer way. A section of Kenyans accused the Kenya Ferry Services of being insensitive. Through its Twitter page, the Kenya Ferry Services confirmed that the incident happened and a rescue operation launched immediately. But then this morning, without a single update on the accident, the company took to social media to advertise its services.
The Kenya Ferry Services has been put on the spot over its preparedness and adequacy in conducting rescue operations whenever such kind of tragedies occurs at sea. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
Very sad indeed incident then. Like I said, 36 hours later, those bodies are yet to be retrieved. And Dr. Boni Khalwale, former Senator Kakamega, thank you so much for joining us on AM Live. I'd like to get your thoughts as well on this incident. What do you make of it?
My deepest condolences to the family and friends. Technically, having lived in Mombasa for many years, I know that those kind of things are fairly common. But in this one, I think I noticed on that ferry, we didn't have there's usually on the ramp, there's usually a pump that would have.
All right, just hold on, Dr. Boni. I understand that we have a bit of a sound hitch there. We'll get that fixed in just a moment. But we'll, before that, there's also this other story. Of course, it was happening in the courts. And
you can speak to that. Let's add now that we've had the MD.
All right.
You know, I don't know, and I think both Aaron and I spoke to this, but the casualness of the MD is unbelievable. A number of things stand out there. First of all, yesterday was a working day.
Yes.
This is a public official. When you see the way he's dressed, it's like he's in a beach. Whatever happened to the dress code, at least for public officials, something that invites and inspires confidence. Secondly, if you play that clip, it's unbelievable. The English is just gone. I mean, you can barely make out what he's saying. Is he qualified for that job? Thirdly, the casualness. He says, we are relying on a private individual. 2 days later, then he says, we hope he will. I mean, what is the minister doing? What is the president doing?
And what even scares this anymore is the fact that we probably do not learn. If you remember in Mtongwe, the accident which claimed more than 250 lives, 1994 still, and the ferry, sort of like, shouldn't there have been some standard operating procedures in terms of how this can be handled with emergency services, Senator?
No, Zainab, I'm wondering whether we still have a cabinet in this country, because these are not the kind of issues that are left to the blubbering, confusion of that gentleman. We are talking about a very serious issue. One, Kenyans have lost their lives. Two, others are in danger, because it tells you of the working condition of that particular ferry. In any civilized society, the cabinet secretary in charge of transport would have already issued a communication, one, on that particular issue, given an explanation, and three, at least an assurance to Kenyans that those who use the ferry services, because hundreds or if not actually thousands of Kenyans use that particular ferry shuttle service on a daily basis. Perhaps even now as we speak, others are crossing. And what assurance do they have if that particular gentleman is the person that this government is relying on to assure the safety of Kenyans. This is not an issue to be treated casually. If we still had a working cabinet, and I dare say, I don't think there's one anymore that is in office, that particular issue would have been addressed to the highest levels of this office. It actually even calls for a message or a word from the office of the president. You know, because the very first duty of any government is to protect the lives and the property of its citizens. On this particular issue, government was not able to protect the lives of those 2 Kenyans. And whenever 2 is already too many, it shouldn't be treated as if it is less of a disaster because it's 2 individuals. Any single life matters. That is someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's sister, and their kid that are already in mourning. Yet we continue to just, you know, pussyfoot on this particular issue as if it's not a serious issue. Therefore, I am lost for words. I cannot believe that CS James Macharia is still comfortable in his office while this disaster has happened. 48 hours later, not a single word from his office. You have even heard from your reporter, and rightfully he puts it so, that the social media pages of Kenya Ferry Services, by the following morning, they were updating their services as if nothing has happened.
They're actually saying, good morning, we're serving you with 4 ferries at the Likoni channel and 1 of them Tongwe channel. We wish you a blessed and fruitful day. This, despite
how can it be a good morning when you have already lost the lives of Kenyans? Surely, what happened to sensitivity to people's lives? I am completely lost and can't believe. I think on such an issue,
someone must be held accountable.
Somebody has to be held to account.
Dr. Boni.
Yeah, thank you for bringing back the sound to me. I had started by saying my condolences to the family and friends. I do not know why Senator Cheruiyot is being too soft. In fact, what we should be asking for is that how come that the cabinet secretary has not resigned? As you said, in the other civilized societies, we would have seen slightly more. And this is not the first time that we are having tragedies at Likoni Ferry. We have had previous tragedies, and the reaction has always been the same, unfortunately. And this is coming a few days after children died at a primary school here in Nairobi. And again, the minister did not respond by taking responsibility, but he started pointing fingers at the owner of the primary school who had been licensed by his own ministry. So I think there is a total collapse in coordination of government and total lack of shame by the people who are taking care of members of the public. If you look at that ramp of that ferry, it doesn't have the normal pump. The many years I lived in Mombasa and worked there is that once you are on the ferry and you've parked, your vehicle, even if the handbrake then broke down, it would come and find a pump and stop there. Why is it not there on that particular ferry?
Then it talks about the state of infrastructure as well.
Yes, exactly. So it's extremely unfortunate, unacceptable, and we would like that we see more responsibility being taken by the government.
Well, I agree with my colleagues, but something very striking though. Of course, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale is no longer in active service, but is closely associated with the Deputy President of the Republic. Senator Aaron Cheruiyot is not only in the ruling Jubilee administration, which he now doubts whether there's a cabinet. And those are very heavy words coming from a man who is not just in the ruling party, but is also in leadership, both at a parliamentary level and therefore in the ruling administration. Having said that, though, and I agree with them, to correct Dr. Boni Halwale, in fairness, you know, Professor Magoha owned up and took responsibility for the tragedy. Even if you watched yesterday's news, he said, "I take responsibility," which is why he now goes out of his way, you know, to try and regularize. And last week when we were here, when that issue arose, I assigned blame at 4 levels. But one of them, I agree with you, Dr. Boni Halwale, the Ministry of Education must bear some level of responsibility for lack of inspection. But interestingly, secondly, even the parents, because last week when we were discussing it, there were reports that there were parents who claimed they had seen, you know, that those classroom was in danger. Now, it's playing out presently because as I watched in yesterday's news, there are some parents who have now refused to move their children and they're insisting that the school be reopened. How can you insist that the school be reopened when the safety measures that were required have not been put in place? That's where some of us must also take responsibility. But secondly, on the Likoni tragedy, I would differ with my colleagues on this. I think there's a sense in which government works, there's a chief executive, then there's a cabinet, then there are other levels. These other levels, like the Ministry of Transport, probably has like 20 or more independent agencies doing different things. When things like this happen, the first port of call should be the person at the hands of whose that responsibility is placed. And in this case, is the MD of Kenya Ferry Services. For me, I would insist that the MD of Kenya Ferry Services resign immediately. Then the minister can address other policy measures that have been taken to ensure the safety of Kenyans moving forward. I would not insist that for every failure of a specific duty, then you have to go for the minister, unless it's at the policy failure level. But at this one, I think it's at the execution level. Because the safety measures, and even when the previous tragedies have happened, they've always been very clear, you know, they come out, they state the safety measures. Even right now, safety measures for public transport, whether it's on sea, whether it's on land, whether it's on air, is very clear. And there was a complete failure in this case.
All right. Yes, sir.